Hey Crosspoint kids, I hope you're ready for story time. We're going to be reading from the Hands-On Bible again, and tonight I'm going to be reading from John chapter 6, and this is the story of Jesus feeds 5,000. After this, Jesus crossed over to the far side of the Sea of Galilee, also known as the Sea of Tiberias. A huge crowd kept following him wherever he went because they saw his miraculous signs as he healed the sick. Then Jesus climbed a hill and he sat down with his disciples around him. It was almost time for a Jewish Passover celebration. Jesus saw a huge crowd of people coming to look for him. Turning to Philip, he asked, "Where can we buy bread to feed all of these people?" He was testing Philip, for he already knew what he was going to do. Philip replied, "Even if we worked for months, we wouldn't have enough money to feed them." Then Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "There's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what good is that with this huge crowd?" "Tell everyone to sit down," Jesus said. So they all sat down on the grassy slopes. The men alone numbered about 5,000. Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks to God, and distributed them to the people. Afterward, he did the same with the fish, and they all ate as much as they wanted. After everyone was full, Jesus told his disciples, "Now gather the leftovers so that nothing is wasted." So they picked up the pieces and filled 12 baskets with scraps left by the people who had eaten from the 5 barley loaves. When the people saw him do this miraculous sign, they exclaimed, "Surely he is the prophet we have been expecting." When Jesus saw that they were ready to force him to be their king, he slipped away into the hills by himself. That evening, Jesus' disciples went down to the shore to wait for him. But as darkness fell and Jesus still hadn't come back, they got into the boat and headed across the lake toward Capernaum. Soon a gale swept down upon them, and the sea grew very rough. Then they rowed for 3 or 4 miles when suddenly they saw Jesus walking on the water toward the boat. They were terrified, but he called out to them, "Don't be afraid, I am here." Then they were eager to let him on the boat, and immediately they arrived at their destination. The next story I'm reading tonight is called Puppy Tale. Sparky lived on a farm in the country. He was as curious and as busy as a farm puppy could be. Sparky searched and sniffed his way around every inch on that big farm. One day, Sparky's father asked him, "Son, what in the world are you looking for?" "I smell something that smells like fun," Sparky answered. "I don't know what it is, but I'll know it when I find it." And off he went. Sparky's father chuckled. He remembered when he himself was the busiest pup in the litter. At least Sparky wasn't bothering the cows at milking time, or rolling in the mud with the pigs, or causing trouble in the hen house. A little later, on the other side of the meadow, Sparky caught a scent, and it smelled like something that smelled like fun. In the woods at the edge of the meadow, Sparky dug through some leaves. He found a big toy bone buried there. Sparky loved his new toy bone. It was perfect for chewing and chomping. He brought it home to show his father. "I found it," said Sparky, "and I was right, it is a fun toy." "Well, what do you know?" Sparky's father said. "I haven't seen that bone in years. That was my toy bone when I was a pup your age." Sparky's father had lost that toy bone a long time ago. He then looked for it way back then, but he never caught the slightest scent of it. Then he'd forgotten all about it. "It was buried in the woods beside the meadow," Sparky said, "like buried treasure." "Son, I'm proud of you," said Sparky's father. "You are one fine finder." "Can I have it?" Sparky asked. "You found it, so it's yours," his father said. "Just be sure you take care of that bone. Don't lose it like I did." Sparky promised he'd never lose his toy bone. He kept it with him all the time. Sparky even held the toy bone while he slept. Sparky brought the bone to breakfast, and he even brought the bone to the pasture where they watched the sheep. But Sparky didn't watch the sheep. He chomped the bone most of the time, and when he wasn't busy chewing, he kept a watchful eye on his toy bone. He didn't want to lose it. Sparky's brother and sister didn't like the toy bone. Sparky thought they must be jealous. He had the bone, and they didn't, so Sparky offered to share it with them. "We don't want it," they told Sparky. "We want to play circle chase, but you never play with us anymore." Sparky said he would play with them for a little while. Every time he turned, though, Sparky bumped his brother and sister with the toy bone. Sparky's father said, "Son, you can't keep running around with that toy bone all the time. Someone might get hurt." "But I don't want to lose it," said Sparky. Sparky's father brought him out to the edge of the meadow. "Let me show you something I learned when I was a pup," he said. "We'll dig a hole that you can use to hide your bone." Sparky and his father buried the bone in the dirt. Now no one would know where it was hidden. "Whenever you want your bone, all you have to do is dig it up again," Sparky's father told him. "This way you don't have to carry it around all the time. and you can be sure it's in a safe place even when it's not with you." "This is great," said Sparky. "Now I can leave the bone and only I will know where it is." "Don't forget where you buried it, Sparky," his father reminded him. "I promise I won't forget," Sparky said. Sparky barked happily, calling his brother and sister out to the meadow. They came to see what was going on. "Now I can play with you again," Sparky cheered. "What happened to your toy bone?" his sister asked. "Yeah," said his brother. "Did you lose it?" Sparky smiled at his father. "I can't tell you where it is," Sparky said, "but if you ever want to play with it, I'll know where to find it." Sparky jumped to chase his brother, snapping playfully at his feet. His brother chased their sister, and their sister chased Sparky, and nobody bumped into anyone else. It was the best time they'd had together in a while. They played circle chase all day long. Sparky had been so busy with his new toy bone, he had forgotten what fun it was to play with his family. That's all for tonight, kids. I really hope you like those stories, and if you have a favorite story that you like to read at bedtime, let us know in the comments, and we might read it to you next week. I'll see you guys next week. Have a good night.